Hey YouTube, this is Mike Morris, the Frustrated Farmer. So I'm out here at my new property that we bought. It's 5 acres. As I've alluded to in a few of my introductory videos, we currently live in a house that's on the market for sale, and our intent is to move out here. It's about 6 miles down the road, a little further out into the country, a little bit more land. 5 acres versus 1.25. So we're gonna put a little house on and put a little orchard, some raised garden bed, some ducks, some chickens, who knows, maybe even a turkey for Thanksgiving. So the current property sits at about 2 acres of field and about 3 acres of forest. Being here in the Northwest, most of that forest is evergreen Douglas fir, but we do have a little transition of maples along the creek bed, and that's one of the things that I've been very diligent about, is trying to get rid of some of the blackberries. So on this property that we inherited, we've got this great big line of blackberries, and we're going to go ahead and live with those because we do love blackberry jam. But everywhere else on the property, it's unwelcome. It's an invasive species that we have here. It's the Himalayan blackberry. Very tasty, great big seeds, but we definitely don't want it all over our property. So I've spent the better part of about 10 months trying to eradicate them, mostly by hand with machete, just because with the watershed being so close, I want to make sure I'm not tearing it up with like a DR brush mower. So luckily I've got that for the more meadow side of the field, but I have to get down and dirty, and in some areas I've cleared 100 feet by hand, and some of it's been as high as about 9 feet tall. So I'm going to show you what we're going to keep, and this is a representation of what I had to take out by hand. But you know, you just got to do what's right for you. A lot of people would just dump killer weed control, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It doesn't work for me. I may use some spot in certain areas, but as of right now, I'm completely 100% clearing it by hand or my brush tractor. So not here judging anybody, for sure. I've used Roundup before. I tend to stay more natural, but once in a while I'm not afraid to call upon the chemists and kill a weed. But really, I haven't done that for many years. So anyway, I'm gonna give you a quick little tour, and we're gonna go and see what the property looks like. All right, so this is the field as it lays. Right down there's my my little everyday driver, kind of at the mark in the corner up that long driveway. So it should be a beautiful view. It's completely sloped, so that may not help me at age 75 and 80 when I'm on my hands and knees crawling around still gardening, but you know, that's okay. You know, my great-grandfather homesteaded from North Carolina, and as my dad has told me, he was in his 80s on his hands and knees still gardening. Couldn't see a thing, but still gardening. So if that's what I have to do, so be it. But yeah, that's a quick little visual, and this is just the 2-acre plot. Behind me is the green shed. But here's what we're going to talk about today. Here are the blackberries. As you can see, I've got a massive row of blackberries, and if you're like me, blackberry jam, blackberry pies are very welcome. But like everything, if you don't want it, and it doesn't matter if it's a tomato plant, I probably throw out about 20 tomato plants a year as it self-seeds throughout my garden. Anything that's not wanted in a specific area is by definition a weed. But yes, for us here in the Northwest, the Himalayan blackberries are a weed. They grow like a weed, and they will literally claim an entire field and forest if not managed. So I do have a DR brush mower, and this is what I'm going to use to keep this at bay. As you can see, I've gone ahead and cleaned a good 50-70 foot path. Unfortunately, there are a lot of suckers in this field that have gotten very high, about chest high, so I do have a long road ahead of me to try to keep these under control. If you go down here, I wasn't even able to get in here, let's say in February. In February, this was completely unobtainable. I had to wade through waist-high suckers. This green area right here, you couldn't even get into. So I've cut this all down by hand. As you can see, I've still got suckers coming up. It's going to be a 2 or 3 year love affair of me in there selectively hitting the the suckers as they come, but eventually, as I pull them up by hand or take care of them, I'll starve out the roots if I'm doing that. I have put in a couple maples, and we'll talk about that in a later video. One of the things I do miss about living on the East Coast is the gorgeous deciduous forest. Now, I love the evergreens here in the Northwest. That's what I was born and raised with. And our little spots of color in the forest are very welcome, but I do love a good fall setting. So this whole line will be, I'll be putting in maples and sassafras trees and American gums, and it's going to look like a little New England setting here in about 15 years. So we'll go from there. But as you can see, all the way down here, this little green strip that's been mowed, these were all blackberries, suckers as far as the eye could see. You could barely get back here. And where you are right here, in this area, there is a great big apple tree. I couldn't even see the apple tree when we bought the property. This was the discovery once I cleaned out all the blackberries and was able to get close enough to identify the gorgeous, brilliant white blooms that came this spring. So, but like everything, we as gardeners have a choice to make. You buy a large parcel of property if you want it to be 100% forest, and however that happens, that's great. In this case, my entire forest eventually would have been taken over by these blackberries. So I've made it kind of a mission of mine to take back the field and to get it all the way down to the creek before it crosses the creek and invades the other side of the forest. That's where the other 3 acres lie. And I've managed to do that for the majority of the property. I still have to get back in here, but basically from here down, all the way through the creek bed, down to the corner, has been eradicated by the massive 8-foot wall of blackberries. Now, I wish my struggle would be over and that I could tell you that I'm done, but that's obviously not the case. This is going to be a labor of love for many years, but eventually the forest will take back, and the wildflowers and the few blackberries won't become a problem. But this is what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of elbow grease. You can take back the blackberries, and if you do it before the spring, nature will reseed itself. I mean, the seeds are in the ground. The weed seeds, the flower seeds, they're all here. Once you let a little bit of light in, nature will take care of itself. As you can see, there's still suckers, and I'll take care of that with machete. But I can basically do this whole 1.5 acres on this transition line by hand with a machete in about 4 hours once I get into it. So it's no different than any other weeding chore. It's just instead of picking up the weeds by hand, this will be done by machete. So this is where I'm at. And again, I couldn't even get back in here. Couldn't even see it. This was all weeds. And as some of you have already noticed, I'm very big on the soil, and I'm very big on not letting any bare dirt touch or come into contact with the light. So if you look down, while it's bare dirt, you will see already the decaying blackberry brambles. All right, so this in and of itself is its own mulch and will help to suppress the next generation of blackberries. Okay, the grasses will come up in the fall. I will seed this with a little bit of wildflower mix and some grasses native to my area, and eventually with some selective grass cutting and some selective blackberry cutting, I will take back this forest and make it beautiful and not a great big blackberry thicket. So I have planted quite a few trees already. Some have already been your typical $80 12-foot nursery stock that I put in place, and then there's been some other ones that I've just little wisps that I've picked up, little maples, a couple oaks that I've planted in and out in the forest. So that's going to be a combination of immediate gratification, like we all want, that great big tomato plant, and then there'll be a few little seedlings in there that I'm going to let grow up naturally. I don't want to break the bank too fast because there's lots to buy, lots to build, fences to keep out the coyotes, and some ducks and everything. But this is the start. This is what it's going to look like. And And you know, the frustrated farmer is going to be maintained for quite a while. But I will win my war on the blackberries, but it will be an ongoing fight, probably long into my golden years. And that's the way it is. There's no such thing as eradicating them, and especially with the birds moving the seeds around, there's not much you can do about that. But a little bit of mechanical help here in the field and a little bit of machete help, I should be doing pretty good. I'm going to hold off on putting any chemicals down for now, but I'm not saying it's bad, but for me, I'm just going to hold off for now. So all right, well, that's the first video on the new property. More to come over the years. You'll see hopefully a house and raised garden beds and an orchard built. I will be putting my orchard kind of up in this corner. And yeah, lots of frustrated farmer videos to come on this. But for now, this is just my quick down and dirty welcome to the new parcel. My videos will consist of a little bit of the new property and the old property as the summer goes on. And hopefully I'll be selling that here very soon. All right. Take care, YouTubers. Keep gardening, keep your hands dirty, and this is the Frustrated Farmer. Take care.